The Chicago Bears preseason is coming and going, as with 2 games already played, they're 8 days away from having no more games left to play. So Bears fans, enjoy it while we got it, because it's soon to be gone. But for now, Nick and I'll take you through every update you need about who's playing well, who's hurt, who's not hurt, what's going on in the division, what happened in Hard Knocks last night, who should you be watching in this weekend's Bengals game, and everything else you need to know. It's all coming at you on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, alongside my co-host, Nick Whalen of Football Guys, as we try to bring you the best Bears podcast we possibly can, combining analytics with film analysis, with opinion, and everything else we can be from 2 hardcore Bears fans.
I'm good, man. I mean, the Bears just came off of, what was it? I saw their biggest preseason win in like 34 years.
It felt like it at the time.
Yeah, 1990, I think. And then we got a bunch of players that came back from injury, man. So I think it's all thumbs up right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, the vibes are truly immaculate. Like, memes aside, everything about this Bears team feels like it's pointing in the right direction. You got a good showing from the offensive line this last weekend. Caleb, obviously, notwithstanding. I think it's the kind of week, Nick, that points back positively because we didn't even see the wide receivers dominate. And they're one of the few parts of the team that you know are going to get theirs eventually. That room is too good not to. So to see Caleb and the offensive line and Cole Kmet drive the success of the offense, knowing that you've got more in the tank, I think that's exciting. And then the defense starts to speak for itself. And then you take a look at this week's practice reports, and the best part to me has been that no news is truly good news. Caleb is still throwing darts all over the board. You've still got plenty of reports of DBs playing well in practice. We're seeing, maybe most importantly, and you pointed this out, all kinds of Bears are starting to come off injury. You want to take us through who we got?
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that's interesting. So Nate Davis is back. He's been the biggest talk of Bears Twitter, which I think has been the biggest overreaction. I posted the meme, not sure if you saw it, Robert, of Game of Thrones, where Jon Snow, he's got the sword against everyone coming, and I was like, this has been me the last few weeks. But Eric Lambert reported that it's been a groin injury for Nate Davis, and those things are pretty touchy. If people have to go through that of where you can tweak it, have a setback, ramp up, but not just him. So I think the 2 biggest ones that have missed the most time, both Nate Davis and Kyler Gordon, worked in team periods today. Davis has 2 days in a row. Sweat was back today, and Tyreek Stevenson. So that's a huge part of your core, Robert, that's back. And again, we're just under 4 weeks to the first game. So if we can slowly ramp back, I don't want them all to play every down of team. And I know some people are going to be like that. They're going to be like, well, they missed out this part of it. That's fine. The purpose isn't to play every snap of practice this week. It's to play every snap of week 1. So if they do half snaps this week and 3/4 the next week, and then they ramp up, I'm okay with it.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I think it's easy to forget that, personally, in my opinion, training camp and the preseason they do different things for different players, right, Nick? I don't care if Andrew Billings plays at all. I just want to hear that he's got 2 working shoulders, 2 working knees, a working set of hips, and he's in playing shape somewhere around August 28th. You know what I mean?
Did you hear his press conference, what his goal is now?
I haven't had any time to listen to any pressers. Okay. So what did he say?
It was yesterday, the day before. It was just funny because, he's a veteran,
Right.
Like, what's your goal? He's like, my goal is to not get pancaked, no matter what.
Well, goodness knows he threw a couple of nasty pancakes in this last game. I love watching him play football, but more to say that when it comes to Kyler Gordon, now in his 3rd season, even Tyreek Stevenson, who played all of last season, and especially Nate Davis, I would argue to you, Nick, that yes, of course, it's been weird with how long it has been seeing all of these guys out, especially Nate, who's gotten all kinds of critique for this. But at the end of the day, if they are healthy somewhere around August 25th, August 28th, and they practice the entire week leading up to the September 8th week 1 game, it is kind of all the same. Veterans
Mhm.
are veterans. Not that they can't use camp, but you know what I'm saying? It's a little
Yeah.
different. In your experience, it was your seniors. You'd like them to be a part of camp, but if they know the system, they're going to be ready for the game so
Mhm.
long as they're set and ready to go through walkthroughs and installs in game week, right?
Yep. Yep. Or if they get partial snaps, it's like some of those veterans, they get the veteran day off because they don't need as much. And plus, you want their legs to be rested. There are some guys that have been out and then injury today. We should touch on. So one of the offensive linemen that's been out is Ryan Bates. So didn't play in the preseason game. He's missed a little bit. I'm not sure what that injury is. So that's interesting. Jacob Martin, again, one of I think my favorite guy is going into camp to help with the pass rush. He's still out. Jaquan Brisker, again, a guy that gets dinged quite a bit. That one is hopefully he's just ramping back up. DeAndre Carter, Colin Johnson, Adrian Colbert were all off to the side today. And not sure if you saw this, Robert, but DJ Moore got banged up today and was down, limped off. They were looking at, I believe, his right foot, right ankle. And then he has helmet on back with the receivers. I don't think he played again. So we'll have to see how serious that was.
I have to assume that whether it's or especially when they involve DJ Moore in it, you're gonna have to rip his foot off before he doesn't get back in the game. I mean, I remember a couple plays last year in particular where Moore showed some grittiness that
Oh,
was unbelievable, taking massive shots like to the face, and then I somehow managed to clear concussion protocol and get back in the next week's game. It was something else.
well,
So
there was two, Robert. One against the Vikings down the middle, another one on the sideline where Fields or Bajent, they airmailed the ball. Moore had a high point and just got drilled in the back. Do you
right.
remember those?
Yes. Yes.
But like he said in Hard Knocks, Robert, he loves
He
football.
loves football, right? That's the
So
thing. I don't know if you're feeling this. Every time somebody live tweets a training camp, I can't help but feel like there are advantages and disadvantages. And look, to guys like Greg Braggs that do it, can I be blunt? Please, it's way better than it is not to have them
mhm,
keep doing that. Thank you, Greg Braggs, for giving us relatively detailed camp notes about what's going on play to play to play to play. But you see a tweet that says DJ Moore came up hobbling, limped off the field, and no, yeah, that's going to send a chill up your spine.
yep.
No matter what's going on, there are moments, whether it's trying to evaluate trying to read what these training camp reports mean, or injury updates, we can be a little too close to the source. It's a full go
Oh yeah.
football practice. Guys are going to come up achy. And until they get, this goes back to something we talked about with Darnell Wright, who played every preseason snap. And frankly, you could also apply it with Tevin Jenkins, who played every preseason snap, Nick, that there's a big difference between being able to play in an NFL football game, like hurt enough to where you cannot play for what you're being paid to play for, and not playing in a practice, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and again, it's practice. The thing that I think that bugs me the most, as much as we want to see the highlights, it's one play in practice. I remember Robert Kyle Hamilton getting burned by a nobody wide receiver in one-on-ones, and it went all viral. They're like, "See, can't move his hips." And here we are today. Kyle Hamilton might be a top 3 defender in the NFL. But injuries, I think, are the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing I don't want to happen in the preseason game. And then I think the best news this week for the Bears. But in division, Robert, some devastating news out of Minnesota today. Um, so they've already had, the unfortunate loss of DB in the offseason. First day of camp, ACL, Mekhi Blackman. They've had a few other ones that have been dinged up. But then JJ McCarthy had a sore knee from the preseason game. They found out torn meniscus, and it's the level of where he's done for the season. And if that wasn't enough, sadly, Jordan Addison got carted off with a leg injury today. We do not know how severe that is, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it's been pretty awful for the Vikings. I mean, really, DEFCON 4. For those who don't know, DEFCON is scale of 1 being where, no, wait, I think it might be DEFCON 2. Now that I think about it, I get those numbers mixed up all the time. Point being, very, very worried. Right, Nick?
Mhm.
My understanding is that Jordan Addison's injury, at least Kevin O'Connell, did not think it was particularly serious. So Couldn't tell you why somebody gets carted off the field and then it's not serious, but
Mm,
I'll believe him until we've got reason to do otherwise. But losing
mm,
JJ McCarthy for an entire season,
yeah.
dude, I don't care whether or not you were intending to get redshirted or not. I think it's a massive loss that instead of going through practice and sitting in the meeting rooms and getting reps as second stringer, I cannot put it together my words today. Thank
You're
you for
okay.
putting up with me, Nick. Instead of all that, JJ's going to be focused on rehabbing an injury, and he will
Yeah.
get to stand on the sidelines. Like, it's not as if he's going to make zero progress. He'll get to go through the tablets with Sam Darnold. He'll probably get to either stand on the sideline or sit in the press box. The Vikings have invested a lot into this young man's future, but dude, what a loss it is
Yeah.
for Minnesota. What a terrible time to lose him. I am really curious, if I'm allowed to say this in the middle of all this, that I think this might make the Vikings better in the short term because I think Sam Darnold was going to be the better player than JJ McCarthy over the course of this season. Rookie quarterbacks are generally not very good. And Sam Darnold would be the kind of guy that could get you a C minus, maybe a D plus performance, whereas McCarthy was likely to turn into a couple of Fs, right? But I don't know if that's frankly what Minnesota wants at this point. And I do wonder if they've lost JJ and they're basically mailing in the season, especially if they lose Jordan Addison, whether they start to consider options to just go from, oh wow, we're going to be kind of bad to let's get really bad. But I don't know how you do that with Justin Jefferson. That's a conversation for later.
You you're trying to sound like a Sam Darnold truther over there, Robert.
How on it? Why do we do this, dude?
I'm messing with
I
you, man.
know. No, 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 no.
So
I want to jump on
so
you. You opened this can. I'm going to jump on you here. We do this all the time, dude, where we take a kid's potential and we act like that makes him better today, right? It is
Mhm.
unusual that Caleb Williams looks this composed already. That's why he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And in the case of JJ McCarthy, you had multiple position players that got picked ahead of McCarthy because he's not ready today. It's
Well,
very rare to
quarterbacks,
be.
man.
What?
I mean, 4 quarterbacks went in front of
Oh,
him,
100%.
period.
But at the very least, I think you and I can agree, Nick, that generally speaking, if a position player gets picked before you, that's an acknowledgement that the position player can do more
Yep.
for you in the short and long term than you
Mhm.
think the quarterback can. I say all this because, look, Nick, you know this. The truth is that what do you think? My number would probably be starting around 23. The 23rd to 33rd best quarterbacks in the league usually are backups. The 8 worst quarterbacks
Yeah.
in the league are usually guys where you're relying on their potential. You're trying to see them break through in some way. You're betting on something that has nothing to do with today. It's all about what they could be in the future. This is the Bears Andy Dalton argument, or the Bears Nick Foles argument, or in this case, it's Minnesota Sam Darnold, where it's like this guy is capable enough to play. We just don't think there's any extra ceiling there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot to it, and I was just teasing you, man.
I know.
So Darnold, I saw this in his career. So I think like the NFL average, I saw this from Warren Sharp. Over the last decade, completion percentage is like somewhere in the 63 point something range. Darnold's never averaged 62. And according to his numbers, Sharp said only 2 point, I think 3% of his incompletions were receiver error, which was the second lowest. So
That's tough.
which means Darnold is very sporadic, very, again,
He's
we
been
saw
super
ghosts, hasn't
inconsistent.
put it together. Yeah. And there's a couple parts to this. So one is he has added pressure, right? Because now he has to be the guy. It's all him. And then I think Nick Mullins is still there. But the positive is he'll get all of the reps. The sad thing is today there was a clip of him throwing a pick six and just hanging his head, which was bad. I don't think it makes Minnesota better. If I'm being honest with you, I think that JJ McCarthy's ceiling is higher. There are some more valleys there. McCarthy's more mobile than Darnold as well, so I think there's a lot to it. But
If Sam
if you have to
started,
take,
this is all I meant when I said in the short term. If Sam starts the entire season, how many wins do you think the current Minnesota Vikings probably get?
Man, I bet they're under. So I'm probably bad. I think their over under is like 6.5 or 7.5.
Hmm.
So I mean, you go. I don't, I'll say with Sam,
With
I
Sam,
I I think the Vikings win 6 games this year.
6 games. Pretend Sam Darnold was not a Minnesota Viking
Mhm.
and JJ's just starting out of the box. Do you still think they win 6 games?
Yep.
I think it honestly drops to 4, maybe 3. You
Wow.
got to recognize, dude, I think rookies are awful. By and large, it's the whole reason that I thought that the Bears were so well propositioned by Carolina last year, where they took a quarterback in Bryce Young that I thought was being massively overrated, and they were going to start him as a rookie with no support. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but Minnesota has support.
they have some support. Their offensive line is fine. Kevin O'Connell's definitely good, but plays like the interception that that JJ threw in his first preseason game are your
Mhm,
very typical rookie mistakes, and
yep,
those will erase the 7 plays in a row that you had to convert to create one touchdown drive. And
mhm,
in my experience, that's what gets rookies into trouble. Is just
mhm,
that one play. In Caleb's case, it'll be a sack fumble. We didn't see him get sacked at all in this
mhm.
preseason game. I hope it never happens. But
Well,
more than likely, Caleb could erase 3 amazing plays that got into the end zone by one play where he's flippant with the ball gets knocked out, recovered, and especially if somehow that ends up in the end zone.
mhm,
I'm saying all this because it's less hating on JJ McCarthy. It's more a personal proclivity of mine that I think Drake May is going to play really poor ball. I think
mhm.
Jaden Daniels is gosh, he's got some receivers, but he has near no offensive line, and his
O-line's
defense is
bad.
in shambles.
Yep,
So that can't be good. Rookies are untested, unready players generally
mhm,
that are
mhm,
surrounded by poor casts. That's why they were drafted in the first place.
yep,
So it's kind of a concoction of all bad
yep.
things.
So I have one other thing to add, and we gotta steer back to a Bears podcast, but this is worth noting. Um, let's go back to the draft day, okay? Every pick after pick 4, we were like, "Is somebody gonna move up for JJ McCarthy?" Thank goodness now Minnesota didn't trade their first next year to move up for JJ McCarthy. Can you imagine trading up and then you lost the player?
Seriously.
So that's one thing. So but I feel bad for them. I know they're a rival, but I feel bad. So okay, moving forward, I have
Kid
a
doesn't
funny
deserve
thing.
it. That sucks for them. I never
Yeah.
want any of this conversation. The division will be better if JJ McCarthy succeeds. I
Mhm.
think the 2025 Vikings are building up to something dangerous. I do think Quessy, like you're kind of getting at, wasn't it we saw during draft season, Minnesota traded the equivalent of the number 4 overall pick to get Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy. Like they've been paying a pretty
A lot.
hefty price
Well,
for a
they
lot
just
of the
traded
moves
away
they've
Andrew
made.
Booth.
Mhm.
They should Booth. So his first draft, remember he had the pick that became Jameson Williams, traded down, got less than what it cost, but he said, it is what it is. You don't always get what the value chart says, which I
Mhm.
understand. Trade down took Luis Sign, right?
Mhm.
He can't play. He might get cut. And then their second pick, Andrew Booth, just got traded for. Actually, I didn't know this. This is interesting. Got traded for Mekhi Blackman's cousin.
And a
That's
player who I think I heard was from Arif Hassan, the first player drafted that was not on the top 300 consensus board. Like his name wasn't on there.
that corner was.
Yeah, the
He
Cowboys corner.
he's 6'4". I was like, ooh, that's interesting.
That's
But
the
all right.
thing.
So
Interesting. Yes.
okay. Steering back to the Bears. So funny thing, this is hard knocks slash tying into a press conference today. So Velus Jones got some pub in the episode, and it kind of steered into he talked a little bit. Remember about like his ferret was like Crash
Yes.
Bandicoot and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
The press conference today, literally like 10 minutes, was about this ferret and the story to get the ferret. And he got it with Michael Pittman, the receiver for the Colts when he was at USC. And he like had to walk down an alley and they were like, this is sketchy. And he's like, keep the car running, Michael. And like eventually the guy showed a ferret and like all of that. Like, and then it was funny, Courtney Cronin, who I like, I think she's awesome, by the way. Was like, all right, back to running back. And everyone kind of like laughed, like to like talk about something. So thought it was kind of funny, but interesting in terms of you got some pub on the episode. Obviously we saw him playing running back. I didn't like how he was like, Hey, if it goes in the end zone, I still have to down it, right? You should know that if you're our kick returner, and some other stuff. But what were your thoughts on Velus?
I think Velus right now is a massive Rorschach test. Like if you want to see what you will see what you want to see, right, Nick? Like let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Grade Velus's game. What did you see from Velus last week?
Give him a C.
Sure, but what sticks out to you? What are the three plays that pop in your mind?
Me as a coach, him
Yeah.
falling down, him having poor vision, and him fumbling a kickoff return.
Yep. Because if especially if you don't like Velus Jones, those are the three that are gonna
No, that's
really
just me as a coach. We go
as it
negative.
should be. Me
Yeah.
sitting here as a, I don't know, I'll put on my scouting hat for a minute. Velus at one point slams into his tackle, spins off the tackle, loses his balance, regains his balance, and still has the burst to create an explosive.
Yep.
He picks up 18 yards on a
Yep.
play where he had no idea where he was going. Couple snaps later, they pitch him the ball, and the end man on line of scrimmage has zero chance to get or to catch him as he trots into the end zone. That burst and his contact balance,
Yep.
you pine for those guys. And like you're
Mhm.
talking about, this is the same game where he trips over Tyson Bagent. I want everybody to notice nobody else tripped on an unscored play because of so I was thinking about this. I was watching JT O'Sullivan's breakdown on Justin Fields where he talked about how in many cases things can be either on the center or on the quarterback based on where the ball bounces, basically. And it got me thinking about how many mistakes are easy to pin on somebody when you have no idea if it's that person's fault.
Mhm.
Tyson Bagent leaves a pitch short for Velus Jones. Tyson Bagent has pitched the ball a lot. I've never seen him leave a pitch short. I've never seen a quarterback leave a pitch
Yeah.
short. And I
Yeah.
started thinking about all the fumbled pitches that I've ever thought of, and it's all receivers. So I wonder,
Mhm.
Nick, if Velus took the right track for where he was supposed to be
Probably not. Yeah,
when the ball
probably
got
not.
pitched to him. So if he trips over Tyson Bagent, meaning that handoffs aren't a given and pitches aren't a given either, because you don't know if he's going to be in the right spot, and
Mhm.
catching the kickoff isn't a given. We already know punts or catching a punt is worse than just not a given. This dude is a disaster waiting to happen. And on any given play where he's not a disaster, it's actually pretty good. So, like, what do
And
you do with him?
the most important part about Velus, I want you to know, Robert, is I got Madden. Okay.
Yeah,
My first Madden game, like open up first game I play, the second hardest level because I'm not going to play super easy. Haven't played Madden in a decade, Robert. Okay,
right,
I've
right.
played college football, been playing that one, but I haven't played Madden. Bayless returned a kickoff return for a touchdown. Like I was him.
Is it a sign?
Oh, Bayless. So I was like, got me excited.
Do you
Um,
think he makes the team?
yes,
Why?
because he has value in so many areas. He can still be a receiver. He can play running back. He can do returner. He can do coverage. He can do so many things that Colin Johnson can't do,
Right.
that Ian Wheeler can't do.
As much as we would look at med student Ian Wheeler or, like you're saying, Hall of Fame superstar Colin Johnson, the other thing I keep coming back to, Nick, is that the Bears are just not heavy on receivers. They have four relevant receivers. I
Yep.
don't think, I cannot remember his name, so I'm not going to try. But the recent
Michael
signee that they
Webster,
had,
Dante
is it
Pettis.
D'Angelo Carter? Is that his name?
Oh, DeAndre Carter,
DeAndre Carter. Thank you.
who's hurt by the way right now.
Who's hurt. So Colin Johnson is hurt. And then
Mhm.
DeAndre Carter is hurt. And a lot of these guys are guys that you can probably either cut outright, like Tajay Sharp last year, or you can probably get them to the practice squad because I don't know if anybody is really pining for Colin Johnson. Very similar to Rodney Adams last year.
Yep.
Velus is the kind of guy that you can put on the fifth wide receiver spot, and he technically knows where to stand as a receiver, but he's going to be doing gunner duty and probably like kickoff pursuit duty and
Yep.
also some of this gadget running back stuff, where especially in an offense that if you're getting this vibe, Nick, I'm definitely getting the vibe that the Bears want to run wide. Like, yes, they want to do enough inside duo sort of stuff to mix it up, but they also want to toss the ball a lot. They want to do wide zone a
Well,
lot.
I think the other part too is like you think of your fourth and fifth receiver or your third or fourth running back, like their job isn't to be the number one guy. Their job is to do all of the other stuff and get snaps because the wide receiver one and RB1 aren't going to do the other stuff. So like someone has to be, think of like Dennis Rodman's role on the Bulls, right? Wasn't to
Hmm.
score points. It was who I can't remember the guy in The Last Dance, right? And again, to keep it PC, was he was to mess everything up. That was his role on defense and rebounds and that stuff. Like that was his role. Like you have to have those players. And Velus is that guy. Now, again, we don't love the punt return idea from him, but if you have to have someone back there because of injury, he could still do that too. So he can do a lot of things. Speaking of though, Robert,
Hmm.
a cool press conference thing I want to transition into is the next segment of, I had a fun title for it, but I won't say it on air, but is Dominique Robinson. And let's talk about weight, because in his press conference, he talked he's up to 274, 275, which he does look bigger. And that's how he could take on that block and how he shot the gap and made a play. And his first question, I thought this was super interesting. They were like, "Hey, so we know your body type's different. Was that because it's do or die?" And he's like, "Yeah, like either I have to do it or I'm gone." So, but he talked about he loves the new kickoff rule because big guys like him, they have a role now. So I think, even thinking about that, he probably makes a team because you think kick return, he's blocking. Kick off, he's a middle guy running down the field because
Well,
he's got the long arms, he's athletic, former receiver, right? And he's got some strength.
it's funny you mentioned that. So I'm really interested to see whether Dominique makes the team or not. And I frankly think it comes down to, I bet you didn't expect me to bring this up right now, Nick, because we got it set for later in the show. Whether or not the Bears make some kind of creative move for pass rusher, it looks, based on a report that we're seeing from Jordan Schultz, like today's big move, the Falcons trading for Matthew Judon, that the Bears were involved in the call as well. So
Mhm.
maybe they do something wild, like a Hassan Reddick deal that I know you'd be excited about. Maybe they do something else from some other pass rusher across the league. Truly, dude, I don't know. Judon was the obvious name, and
Yep.
now he's off the market. Third round pick for Atlanta. I can only imagine what contract Judon wants to sign. Little too rich for my blood. I think it's probably for the best that Poles stayed away. They don't need this move that badly. But giving you back the mic on Judon and also here Dominique Robinson, definitely think it's a good move for Dominique to find whatever he can do. The speed
Mhm.
profile just did not work for him. It's okay to say he
Yep.
felt better at a lighter weight, but he wasn't having the pass rushing success that we frankly have seen out of Austin Booker already. So, past
Mhm.
certain point, you got to do what you got to do to stick
Mhm.
around in the league. I think he's going to be the edge four because the Bears just don't have another. They just don't have another guy,
Do you like
especially
Hardy or no?
what
Do you like Daniel Hardy or no?
I think Hardy's been fine. I mean, I could certainly see him making the team. He's undrafted, right?
Yep.
I am gonna sound like such a curmudgeon. Is that the word? Curmudgeon is the word.
Much.
I just spoke it like I read it. That's so sad of me, dude. Draft status breaks ties. Dominic Robinson was drafted. Hardy was not. And so until I see otherwise, maybe because Dom Rob was so late, this won't be the case. But I wouldn't be shocked if they gave him a chance. We'll see though.
The thing that sticks with me is we look at the theme of polls and flus and what they want in an end. They signed Walker. Walker's been basically an end for them. We saw some pass rushers last year that were, a little tantalizing that got cut. We're like, what's going on? Because they like the bigger guys. Robinson maybe seeing that and saying, hey, I need to add some weight. Then we look at Hardy here. He's 6'3", 240, Robert. I just don't think that that's what they want. I know Booker's light and he's kind of fitting in that mold, but I still think they want him to bulk up. So if you're thinking of that edge four, if they keep five, probably not, but four, that guy has to play special teams too. Like we're talking about like the glue
Right.
guys, like that fits in there too. So I'm with you. If you don't add in, again, Hassan Reddick, which I'm not worried about the draft pick compensation because you're not going to give up a one or two for that guy. But there's going to be some financial parts with it. So I don't know if they're going to do that now.
It's interesting
Um,
though, because you mentioned Reddick, and if the Bears gave up more draft pick than they should, I mean, the floor is or the ceiling is pretty much set for you. The conditional third that the Jets gave up, it was a conditional two, but they gave up a third. So I think, at worst would be refreshing that 3 to get Hassan Reddick. And I would let Hassan Reddick ask for way more than he's worth because I think the dude can rush the passer. He's
Mhm.
good enough. He's a year younger than Matthew Judon, and he's been healthy throughout his career. So you
He's
don't bring
he's
what
2 years younger than
even
Judon.
better. I thought he turns, I think he's about to pop his birthday here very shortly.
I
So
thought here, I'll look it up. I thought he's turning 30 and,
he might be.
he's
And
and then Judon's 32.
either way, younger, less
Yep,
damaged, literally speaking, and
yes.
almost exactly as productive is the kind of thing you look at and you go, wow, that's really attractive. But if Joe Douglas allows Hassan Reddick to leave New York after allowing Bryce Huff to leave New York with an aging Aaron Rodgers on the roster, the dude's going to get fired. And
Yep.
so I'll just be blown away if at the end of the day Hassan Reddick ever actually becomes available. The only chance the Bears get Hassan Reddick, this is being realistic here, Nick, is probably either massively overoffing draft picks, which I don't think polls will do,
Nope.
or the Jets start 2-5, 2-6, and you get Hassan at the deadline. I could understand that, where the Jets go into fire sale mode,
Yeah.
knowing that it's all going wrong. They have to reset and trying to make an appeal to their owner to stick around. But
Mhm.
we'll see.
I mean, or if he just says, "Hey, I'm not." I mean, he's already given up, I think, 2.5 million in fines. So, I mean, he was the 87th ranked top 100 player this year. So I looked at it. Someone said what he's looking for, like what 25, 26 a year, which he's not going to get. That's more than Daniil Hunter. He has, I think it's 15 or 16 on his current contract. So my guess is if you gave him 2 years, average 23 a year with the first year guaranteed as an extension, then that bumps that down to 3 years. It's worth what, like 19-ish a year, 20 a year. That's doable with over 2 years. Then you cut him. I'd be okay with that as your
Harley,
pass rusher.
we could bog down for days, truly days, in going back and forth about what the market says versus what Reddick will take, especially since if you actually did trade for Reddick, dude, I don't think you have any negotiating leverage when you trade for him because it wasn't immediately public that Reddick was going to be a stickler about his contract. Well, now it is.
Yeah,
So
nowadays.
if you trade for Reddick, you sign, he gets to tell you the contract that he
Wow.
just agreed to, and all
That
you
that's
get to
settled
do is
down
agree.
before you trade for him.
Right.
Are you concerned about Keenan Allen's weight?
Am I allowed to say no? So my assumption is that listing weight has always been kind of a lie. We get a weight when we're at the we get a weight from the combine, we get a weight from the Senior Bowl, and then after that, dudes do whatever they want to do, and they get to keep the list. They get to basically tell the person who's writing the paper roster what weight they want to be listed
Yep.
as, and
Yep.
then especially when you're talking about a going on 32-year-old receiver, if you told me that he was currently 230 and was going to play his way down to 220, 225, I'd believe that too. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, Nick, truly, Keenan's not a fast guy. I mean,
Nope.
there was recent critique from JT O'Sullivan about, oh, I don't want people to be too mad at me because this guy just doesn't look like a burner. And I'm like, Keenan Allen has never been a burner. It
Nope.
Whether he gets open or not will have nothing to do with his foot speed. It's never been about his foot speed. So maybe, Nick, we look back at all of this, at the jokes that he made about how he never had a catch against Jalen Johnson. Maybe we end up looking back and saying, maybe we should have known that Keenan didn't have anything in the tank when he told us that. But we don't know now. We won't know because he's supposedly 230 pounds. We're just going to have to see 5 to 7 weeks of games where he doesn't produce at all before we come to that conclusion. Is that about
Yeah.
fair?
Yeah, I'm not worried at all. I mean, this is a guy he knows how to get himself in shape, and if it's not 100% right now, he knows how to ramp it up for when it needs to be. He's done it year in and year out. He was with the 11th best receiver PFF last year. I have a hard time believing it just fell off and now he got lazy.
I
In
agree.
terms of
And also, this is it for the dude. Like,
Yep.
just building off of what you're saying, Nick, players will make weird decisions sometimes. I still cannot believe that Chase Claypool basically willingly nuked his career the way that he did across Chicago and Miami and now Buffalo.
Mhm.
Like, since he got traded from the Bears, I believe he has less than 250 total receiving yards. I should have said that. I think I said that wrong. Since he got traded from Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh, yep.
he's had less than 250 receiving yards.
That's
Keenan,
sad.
Keenan Allen's not that guy. Keenan Allen knows this league. He's been a 6-time Pro Bowler, and he knows that he's on the last year of a new of his old deal with a new team.
Didn't Allen have almost that many yards against Minnesota in one game last year?
Yeah, he did. Just about. And so you look at Keenan, and I personally can't help but think, Nick, if Keenan doesn't have it in the tank, it's not going to be it's not going to have anything to do with lack of preparation. It's not going to have anything to do with Keenan not taking things seriously. It'll just be because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But truly, if Keenan caught 150 yards in the preseason, that would be nice. I would enjoy the highlights, but it wouldn't signal anything about what he's going to do in October either. So
Nope.
we just got to wait till games start with a guy like him.
Yeah. What did Robert do during the Hard Knocks delay?
Well, I was helping out a young Bears YouTuber. If you have any questions about how to do content stuff, don't ever feel or hesitate to DM me. So I did that until about 8:40, and then I sat down, realized that Hard Knocks was delayed, and so somebody said it's going to be on at 9. So I just almost literally twiddled my thumbs. Like I ate dinner, which I was late on, and then turned it on at 9. And it wasn't there. And so then, dude, I've never felt so entitled in my life. Truly. I was just like, where's my Hard Knocks?
Dude, my favorite part, honestly, so like, again, I was irritated, but the memes were hilarious.
They were.
Like, I added to it, but just I like our little Bears, Dave and Ficky and Rashad. Like we got lots of like fun creators. Dude, they had some funny memes. Like it was pretty funny. So honestly, I know there was the delay and people were mad. And Big Cat is like live streaming because he has it and brags. And I just laughed. I thought it was funny. But 2 Hard Knocks. What was your favorite? I have 2 favorite parts of the episode. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was any cinematic still shot of Caleb Williams. Just going to be honest with you. When they give me that director camera angle of Caleb doing the point, which I didn't realize he did so many times, I'm like, And then also, I loved the Jalen Johnson segment. I mean, I think a good DB is never going to get enough credit. Jalen embodies that lack of credit. The fact that he's not on the NFL top 100 list, I do think of all of the players, that's one of those, what are you guys doing? Like to the rest of the NFL. But it's no big deal. You have to have sustained success to make that list. And I loved his catchphrase of, hey, look, offense, it ain't your fault. Like so condescending, right? Where it's like defense, great job, guys. Offense, nothing you could do about it. Like, keep that attitude.
I mean, I think that we're finding when you watch Hard Knocks and you see them mic'd up how much trash talk happens. As a coach, I would trash talk our defense if I was coaching offense. If I was coaching defense, I would trash talk the offense. Like that's just, I think, part of it because you're competitors. You know what I mean? And even afterward, you could see, he would coach up Rome sometimes, right? Or he would talk with other guys. Like you still want them to do well because you want that on game day, but you have to have that edge. My favorite 2 parts of the episode, both were about Caleb and Rome.
I knew you were going to say Caleb and Rome.
Did you? Did you?
Yeah, you love the rookies.
This isn't even one of them. Okay, we'll just say this is an extra one. Okay, after Rome sang, okay, which I thought was sweet, by the way. So brings in the boom box,
right?
Like he was like ready, and the first person to congratulate him was Caleb. Do you see that? Caleb got up, dabbed him up. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. My favorite 2 things. One, the funny one is when Caleb comes over, is like, what are you getting ready to go to the club? And he's got the fish.
Hilarious.
I was dying. I was like, this is amazing. But my real favorite one, because you had talked about on the last episode, when we're breaking down some of the plays of how Caleb saw that it was too high man, right? When it initially thought it was one eye, then they rotated, then it was man and decided to run. And he was processing all of that. During the episode, they go to the sideline and Caleb talks to him. He's like, hey, If next time, just settle right there and I'll hit you. Or if not, then I want you to go to the back corner. Like he's already doing that. But think of how much, again, we've talked about this, y'all. The number one thing of quarterbacking is processing. He's processing all of that, knowing where he wants his guys to go while he's getting pressure and things are breaking down. Like he's him. Like I'm not even like trying to be hyperbole, and like I said, with me like trying to hold back and not saying he's the lead in all these categories, remember, and people giving me grief about it. Like that's just not how I am. But him processing like that as a rookie, which you've talked about in this episode, that's rare and it got me excited.
It is. And I mean, the where I think Caleb has to watch out, because where Caleb's mindset is going to get him in trouble. Let's just be real about it. Caleb sees every play as something that can be extended, right? One thing that I've noticed looking back is if you want to find a quarterback that gets rid of the ball on time, usually with pretty proper ball placement, you want to look for NFL guys that can't move. It cannot be shocking that Nick Foles and Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, et
Yep.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are some of the best timing quarterbacks in football during their banner days, because they had to be. If you weren't on time, you got hit.
Yep.
And nobody
Tua.
wants to get hit by a 265-pound train made of muscle, right? With Caleb Williams, to use an example, he's already working out scramble rules because he believes he's going to get these opportunities again, right?
Mhm.
And I know he's going to be right. There are going to be plenty of moments where I think Caleb will extend the play, and it'll be good that he worked out all these things. I hope the ball security emphasis that you can tell Caleb is placing on every play, right? He
Yep.
steps up through the pocket. He's got both hands clustered on the football. He rolls out of the pocket on the holding call. He's got both hands extended away from defenders
So
with,
goofy,
with
man.
the football. He's trying not to fumble. It's
I
plain
know.
as day that he's working hard on not
I know.
fumbling. I can't help but think, Nick, because I hear a comment like that and I'm stoked that he's going through it. I'm just really curious to see how much a young rookie Caleb Williams wants to win through street ball and how much he wants to win through structure. Because
Yep.
I bet you he would tell you he wants to win through structure, but his habits that we see played out over 300 snaps in September, that's really going to tell us where his head and heart are at. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. And plus, like, what system fits him best. I mean, we'll learn a lot more about him, I think, within the next 3 years, if I'm being honest.
Right.
Because 1 year there's not enough sample size. I have a question about Roma Odunze
Give it to me.
that's going to be maybe controversial, maybe a little pushback. Okay, Rome has given me the vibes of he's a really nice guy. Like
Mhm.
he hard worker. I mean, the advice to the kids, like sat and listened to him, like dude, like great dude, right? Here's my gripe. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, is he too nice?
I knew you were going to ask this. Just because as you set it up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to talk about Larry Fitzgerald, huh? Where it's like, I think that there are receivers we've seen throughout history that are nice and they're just fine as far as receivers go. Now, I don't know, man. I mean, on one hand, you've got Malik Neighbors starting fights what feels like every other practice, and he also looks unguardable. So you take the good with the bad.
Yeah,
But all we've got from Rome Odunze are some practice highlights because the
yeah,
routes we saw him run in the game were nothing special. Like,
yeah.
I personally think that two things can be true at the same time. Yeah, the DB held Rome. No, he shouldn't have been flagged. Rome got beat on that
Yeah,
route.
I think so. Yeah,
And the moment you call that, unfortunately, you're going to have to call holding on like half of Tyreek Stevenson's reps because that's the same kind of style of ball he's going to play.
So
Yeah.
So, I mean, my answer would be I don't think it's a concern right now
Mm-mm.
because when I think of his game, he's more of like a physical type receiver already. And so that would give me a concern, right? But now I
Right.
go back to last year and the huge sample size of a guy that played through injury. Again, the punctured lung, which I brought up before, and fixed not being good at contested receptions to being one of the best in the nation last year. And to me, it's almost like the light switch, like he can flip it on and off. And so if he can do that, I'm good. I just need to make sure he's got a little bit of that. Like, I want to see him bury somebody, like blocking because he's got the physicality. I want to see him do that and then like, okay, we're good.
I just want to see him get open deep. He's been doing it in camp.
Yeah.
I think he can do it here because it's funny, right? When you talk about violent people like DJ Moore is mean enough, right? And that's the kind of guy that will take you for a ride 8.5 yards after contact up the sidelines. Like, that's who DJ Moore is. The funny part about a receiver is you can have soft receivers, I'll use the word, that are still really good receivers. Receivers do not have to like getting hit. They don't have to like blocking to be exceptional if they're athletic enough. And Rome,
Mhm.
according to his combine tape, is athletic enough.
Yeah.
He is a perfect example, I think, Nick, of somebody who the fact that the starters only played a quarter was a massive, massive problem for him and Keenan Allen because the rollouts were working. And you want to do those out of 12 personnel. Gerald
Mhm.
Everett got 1,000 snaps. It felt like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I thought
Roman.
he looked good without getting a target.
I thought he got popped on a couple of like route stems, but what do I
Mhm.
know? At the end of the day, all I'm really trying to say is that I'm stoked to see Rome early in the
Yeah.
season. I'm trying not to get too high or too low on camp stuff.
What did you think of the Austin Reed Love Island breakdown? Are you in the misses into the reality TV, Robert?
We're into the reality TV stuff, but I mean, to just cite what we talked about in last podcast, I am podcasting with you right now after work before my wife and I leave for something. I stream on Tuesdays, I DM on Mondays, so I don't have as much time to watch reality TV. And when we do, we are loyal to the Bachelor series. And so that means that Love Island just doesn't make it onto the menu.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
My
guys watching Love Island?
No, no, we're not. But I will say this: I did have a reality phase, and that's because my best friend was on multiple reality shows.
That's wild.
Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelor Pad 2. So,
Who?
um, let's just well, maybe for another time.
Okay.
We're off air, we'll just literally my best friend, like dropped him off to go
That's
on the
crazy.
shows, picked him up. Yeah. I have some insight. We can talk about another time. Um, Ian Wheeler delaying medical school, I thought was a fascinating story. Like what like it's the type of story that makes you wanna root for him,
Oh,
because 'cause you're
yeah.
like, "Wow, bet on yourself," so much respect for that, and especially because if he didn't do anything last game, we would have saw that segment and been like, maybe he shouldn't have done that," but looks like he can play. So, I was, that just I thought was a pretty touching moment of the episode.
Oh, he popped hard in the last game. He needs work against better defenders because
Mhm.
I don't know about you. One of the wildest parts to me about watching NFL preseason is that the game speed when the starters are in and the game speed when the fourth string is in is so obvious. The
Yes.
difference, it's like, whoa. So
Mhm.
Wheeler looks really fast against the fourth string. Let's get him in against the second string, see what happens. But ultimately, Nick, it's funny. We haven't even managed to talk about the Bengals season, and I got to run. So we got to wrap up, or not the Bengals season, the Bengals game. I'm sure
Mhm.
the Bears are going to play joint practices, and then we're going to see more of the second string in the net in this upcoming game. So it's probably the only game, if I had to guess, this is just me guessing, that the Bears are going to kind of give the fans the day off. It's not that simple. I'm being a hater because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, no, I
funny,
get it. I
but
get it.
like you'll see some Austin Booker, you'll see some second string, third string running backs. You'll see a little bit more Tyler Scott for all you Tyler Scott nuts. You'll see more
Mhm.
Velus at running back, but you
Mhm.
probably won't see any of the starters. And then you'll
Yep.
see like a half of them against Kansas City. So
Mhm.
gives us a lot to look forward to for that preceding Thursday because the Bears play on Thursday against Kansas City, right?
I think so, yeah.
Meaning it's all the more reason to not play anybody that you think is a starter
Yep.
because why would you create a short week when you have no need for a short
Right.
week?
Right,
It's a
well, that
weird
increases injuries, we don't want that.
weird week for preseason.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I think these joint practices will be interesting. I don't know if they'll get because they have controlled reps there, it will be a lot more of, "Okay, hey, we wanna see this situation or this 2-minute or this red zone against starters," so we'll see from there. Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, I thought it was a good episode. I want people to remember this though, because some people are like, "There's not enough football stuff with the Hard Knocks right now," and there's a reason for that. If we go all the way back to the Rams being on Hard Knocks long time ago. The first time they went to the Super Bowl and lost New England in that like 10-9 or 12-9 game, if you remember that boring Super Bowl. The backup quarterback for New England, I can't remember who it was offhand right now. He watched Hard Knocks and watched there were some other like things where they had video feeds and got a bunch of their audibles and hots,
Oh
and
my
that's what they
gosh.
used in the Super Bowl and how they beat them. So if you look at, they're not saying play calls. You're not seeing a lot of that stuff, and that's because the NFL is protecting right now. So if you're like, oh, why is there so much music, so much of these other things? That's why.
It's basically a giant 1920 football drive. I have no
Mhm.
problem with this.
Yep.
Like, it is, it's so funny because I feel like I got told that it was this reality TV show, but there's like no drama in it. It's just a very glossy interpretation. Dude, they're winning games. So it's a very glossy interpretation of an already glossy situation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I got no problem with it. We get to see
Mhm.
great things like, what is it? They keep pulling Jalen Jones and he keeps going, oh my goodness, how did Caleb do that? And it's
Hey,
like,
how about Eagle, getting all the mail, he went to interviews and, the
isn't that so
the
fun?
ladies. Oh, I loved it. It was so funny, man.
Dude, okay, so what are you looking forward to as the Bears do transition to joint practices, the Bengals game this weekend, everything leading up to our next podcast?
To me, staying healthy, having some of those guys getting reps. I heard Kyler Gordon made a play today, which is fine, just a little bit here and there. And then just development. Like at this point, they have maybe 25% of the playbook in, and they're not going to have 100% in by week one. So it's just getting some more of that stuff in and seeing a little bit of progress and nobody get injured. That's all I care about.
Seriously. And then I would love to see some Roma Odunze and Keenan Allen reports. We had a report the other day of Keenan Allen getting found over the middle of the field for a third down conversion. Look, I'm not trying to hang on to anything too desperately here, Nick, but I'll tell you that I'm guilty of when I see a string of negative reports, I start to worry that there's a negative thing that's about to happen. Just the other way, where when we see a bunch of positive reports, we've seen that Javon Dexter has been disruptive all throughout training camp. And
Mhm.
in his game last week, I didn't think he was Aaron Donald, but he came up with a couple disruptive plays and
Yep.
he looks like he's kept his base lower against the run game. So it's not as if these camp reports give you nothing to work
Right.
with. So I would love to see something from the receivers as they develop. But I hold to that as much as I would love to see all these things, yeah, I don't need them. They don't matter. They won't change the way anything functions on September 8th, so long as nobody gets hurt. So, like
Yes.
you're saying, give practice a full go and get out of it safe.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, dude, we didn't even talk about Jameer Gibbs' injury, which sounds
Oh.
like it's a hamstring issue. That could be a problem. The Lions are
Mhm.
already a very top heavy team. So, we'll see what goes on across the
Mhm.
division within the Bears. And in my opinion, if they make it healthy and ready for the game September 8th, it was a very successful camp in preseason.
Yep. Yep. I mean, right now we might be the healthiest team in the division. You keep thinking about like all these little factors or what's going to matter, and like playing Minnesota, we might have gone 5% up in terms of the odds of winning both of those games. So like all those little things, that's what matters right now. So just stay healthy and let's stay positive on Twitter.
Totally agree. Tried to knock on wood and disconnected my microphone, but glad I was able to get it back. Positive for sure. I'm stoked for us to finally be able to talk about football. I'll tell you one thing that maybe I'm just calloused, Nick, but I'll end on this. This is my final thought, right? I have always dreamed since I actually started learning anything about football, since 2019, for a season where the Bears were just good enough that we could spend the entire season talking about offensive and defensive matchups, play calls that were creative or uncreative at the right time, schematic duels between coaching staffs, and generally the bottom has fallen out of every single team we've covered so quickly that it stopped being about whether Matt Nagy was a good play
Yeah.
caller because the franchise quarterback might not be a franchise quarterback and there's it just doesn't matter anymore. And
Mhm.
so I would love it if Caleb Williams really does. Nobody's talked about this. Nobody's used this word, right? I hope Caleb Williams is good enough to bring a stability to the way that we talk about the Chicago Bears. Where, yeah, we want to dig into the nitty gritty of Matt Eberflus's specific third down tendencies. We want to get into the nitty gritty of how Shane Waldron operates his offense, because a lot of the really key fixtures, we're pretty comfortable with those. So we'll see how this goes. But right now, this is trending towards a really fun season to cover, a fun season to watch, and a fun season to experience together. And if you know me at all, you know that I don't think that there's any fun in positivity without enough negativity to make the positivity meaningful. But, Nick, it looks like we'll get plenty of the latter, like the
Oh yeah.
positivity that is meaningful based on the way this thing's rolling right now.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it could be very special. But again, like again, maybe to a fault, I just choose to look at everything as a positive because the negative doesn't help. It doesn't help me. I don't think it helps anybody just to be like, I hate this, or like hate is never good in my world.
A true coach's mentality.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well,
I
that's the public perception. Yeah, behind closed doors, it's different.
Hey, I sit there and I'll be honest, I look at some of this where, for instance, to use an example, I think that talking about how the Bears defensive line from last year, before, especially before Montez Sweat, is not very good, was really important because it helps you evaluate Eberflus better, right? You can't, it would be easy to look at Eberflus and say, this guy sucks. His defense is one of the worst in the NFL. But then you look at the fact that he runs a coverage-based disguised back seven defense that is focused on generating pressure with your front four, whose front four was bad last year. So, of course, the defense isn't going to work. The
Right.
way that it's designed runs counter to the way that its team is going to win. So then seeing them shift towards blitzes helps us tip our hat to Matt Eberflus and say, okay, good on you for recognizing where things were problematic and finding what worked.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about, right? Where it's like hating, that doesn't really make any sense. I'm right there with you, where hating
Mhm.
Nate Davis on a personal level is taking things too far. Being frustrated with Nate Davis because it's
Sure.
such a big season and it feels like the right guard is somehow becoming unreliable in a season where you already know your left guard's unreliable and now your right tackle might have injury problems. I can understand anybody taking out all the frustration of another rookie quarterback surrounded by um uncertain pieces, that
Sure.
you'd take that on a Nate Davis. But if Nate bounces back, practices for 2 weeks leading up September, and dude, fingers crossed, he plays a consistent game. Not even asking for perfect. Just they're gonna have to face Jeffrey Simmons. Like, play okay.
Mhm.
Survive.
Yep. Yep. And if he's a top 25 guard again, like he did for 3 years, then hey man, it could be real special
No,
here.
you get a told you so. If he's a
I
top
better get some
25 guard,
apologies.
you get a big told you so at that point.
I'll be loud on Twitter. Don't you worry.
Dude, what is your final thought?
Well, my final thought is this. I think there's a kind of interesting part of the last part of the preseason that we didn't really get into was punt returner. We don't really know. Josh Blackwell and Greg Stroman both took punt returns. And if that's your guy, knowing that they play a bunch of different units and they can just at least catch the ball, I'm okay with it. That could be the way that thing gets solved.
I I'm interested in
Yeah,
Blackwell,
we'll
but
see.
I don't know, man. One thing that I always think about, and this all goes all the way back to Jacob Martin, right? Is I used to do a lot more of the theory crafting, and I still do it sometimes, but I really don't allow myself to start doing the theory crafting until I see a coach try something in a game. Like
Mhm.
Javon Dexter at edge, to use an example. I will talk about him potentially getting more work at edge because he got some work at edge already in a game where if it doesn't work, the coach could get into hot water with his owner, right? Like
Yep.
it's the same thing that you and I would talk about when it comes to all the tape. If you and I had access to more practice tape, sure, we'd know the team better, but we don't know the drill. So we can't be sure
No.
of what we're
Yeah.
watching.
Or the progression, in the
Exactly.
concept. Yep.
The only reason that you and I watching NFL tape is so consistent is because all of the assumptions about what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to win because it's a real NFL game. So they're
Yep.
taking the shortest route that they think they can take to get to a win. And we know that because it's an NFL game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, there are
Mhm.
assumptions you can make. With Blackwell at punt returner, dude, I'm open to anything that isn't
Yeah.
Rome Odunze. In fact, I want
I
them to try everything. that isn't Rome Odunze.
I'm cool if he just catches it, fair catches it every time if it's Rome. I just don't want him to get hurt.
I'd let Ryan Poles do it if he thought that he could run
He's
under the
lost
punt.
weight, man. He's still got eligibility.
I'd be fine with that if they thought he could run under it and catch a punt. Tyson Bagent, if they thought he could run under it, if they thought Torrey could read the punt out of the sky and just catch it.
Oh, he's probably got advanced knowledge on that.
Gotta hope so, right? Like look up and go,
good idea.
Oh, there it is. But I'm fine with all that so long as it's not Rome Odunze. But
yeah, to me, if Rome's back there, he's got enough he's already trying to figure out as an important part of the offense as a rookie that I don't want to put this on his shoulders as well.
Right. That's the other thing with Rome. I want him to know a role, learn that role, and not feel like he's biting off too much at once. But dude, I don't know. I don't want to. I also don't want to baby Rome Odunze. He's a top 10 pick. He's good. That's why they picked him 9th. So there's a balance to all this. But I mean, the funny part is, Nick, is that at the end of the day, can I be blunt? The other thing about Rome Odunze that really sets me at ease is that if the Bears get an all-pro quarterback out of picking Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, Rome could never catch an NFL football, and the Bears will be just fine. Like, I
hope, a luxury pick.
I hope Rome is phenomenal. But in an NFL draft that sees you miss on about 50% of your picks, I'm not declaring Rome a bust. I think he's going to be good. I'm just saying I have no expectations for Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
Because if Caleb's the one we're focusing on, is the best way I can put it.
If he hits, everything else, again, winning solves a lot of issues. Having a great quarterback solves a lot of issues as well.
Oh, so yeah. And I mean, like, look throughout the years. Generally, a quarterback needs one phenomenal target, and they'll make the rest work. And the Bears have a phenomenal target on their roster already. He caught Caleb's first pass. He caught Caleb's second pass. Like, Caleb and DJ Moore are going to be just fine. So I hope Rome is that dude. I hope Keenan is that dude. But if Caleb is that dude, then the rest falls into place, which is a wild thing to say.
Yep, I'm with you, man. You good?
Oh, I'm good. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We love the feedback. Keep it coming. If I didn't update the graphic for this one, give me a very hard time in the comments because it is on my list of things to do to get to replace Nathan Peterman, who was just supposed to be Nick. It was just supposed to be a way to not put a quarterback on the like.
Oh, I see.
Well, if you remember, there were months where Justin Fields wasn't on the roster, but also the Bears hadn't drafted Caleb Williams yet. So to avoid...
Is this like the Madden curse? Is this like a thing with Robert? You don't want to like curse it?
No, he literally wasn't a Bear yet. And so on the off chance that the Bears didn't draft Caleb after they traded Justin Fields, very small chance, but a chance, I just stuck Peterman there and they got too busy to change it. So
go with like Patrick Scales then. Go with, the guy that's going to be a Bear forever.
Gotta be Caleb. Gotta be Caleb now. And we've got some great shots of him throwing the football from the Bills game in a Bears uni. We're good. So either way, guys, rate us if you liked the show. If you didn't like the show, just DM me. Don't rate the show. And then catch us next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bear down. Thanks so much for bearing with us.